Chapter 11. Iman. The Right Faith. Part 2. The Hajj, pilgrimage, is an annual ceremony to commemorate the great sacrifice of Prophet Ibrahim and Prophet Ismail, peace be upon them, held on the 10th of Zu al-Hijjah, the 12th and final month in the Islamic calendar. The Kaaba, the first house to worship Allah, was built by Ibrahim and Ismail, peace be upon them, in Mecca. The Kaaba is considered to be the most sacred place for the worship of Allah. The pilgrimage to Mecca is a vow to start a new life free from all sins and endeavor to follow the way of life as dictated by Islam. Hajj is an important duty to be offered at least once in one's life if one can afford to take the journey. This marks an event to adopt a life devoted to Allah. The Holy Prophet proclaimed that his mission was to revive the religion of Ibrahim, peace be upon him. Islam, which means submission to the will of Allah. The pilgrimage to Mecca has all along been a most popular annual ceremony among the Arabs, since the days of Ibrahim, peace be upon him. During the passage of time, the spiritual aspect of the function was lost. Still, the sanctity of the ceremony was deeply rooted in their hearts. The conception of the oneness of God vanished. Idol worship came into vogue. The occasion of pilgrimage was treated as a fair and was used as an opportunity to make merry. No trace of spiritual significance could be seen. The Holy Prophet revived its genuine spiritual importance. Important reforms were introduced, or revived by the Holy Prophet. The pilgrimage to Mecca was popular during the time of Ibrahim and Ismail, peace be upon him, who actually built the original Kaaba. Over time, it took the form of a fair. The Holy Prophet prohibited all frivolous activities. Singing, dancing and drinking were all stopped. The pilgrims were instructed to pass their days in prayer and meditation. The Holy Prophet introduced the use of ihram on the eve of the pilgrimage. It implies that the pilgrim must use an unsewn piece of cloth, one piece wrapped around the waist and the other wrapped around the neck, keeping the head and the right arm bare. Pilgrims imposed unnecessary restrictions on themselves. The Holy Prophet declared these restrictions as foolish and advised them to ride camels as a form of sacrifice instead. The Holy Prophet instructed the pilgrims to hold a feast on the 10th Zu al-Hijjah at the end of the ceremony. The pilgrims were advised to begin dressed in a ihram reciting the lines, "I am present, O Lord, I am present. To Thee I am present. All praise is for Thee. All blessings are from Thee, all the world is Thine." It is highly meritorious for a Muslim to offer a pilgrimage to the first house of worship at least once in their life. It is a vow to renew a life of piety and righteousness. Submission to the will of God, with a spirit of self-sacrifice, is the spirit of Islam as demonstrated by Prophet Ibrahim and his eldest son Prophet Ismail. Prophet Ibrahim, peace be upon him, conveyed his vision to his son Ismail, that he was ordained to sacrifice his only son to seek the pleasure of Allah. The son readily condescended. As Ibrahim attempted the sacrifice, he was ordained to sacrifice a ram instead. This test of the sincerity of the father and the son is commemorated on the 10th of Zu al-Hijjah every year. Ibrahim, peace be upon him, has been designated the leader of all religious people. The Kaaba is proclaimed as the place of assembly and a symbol of peace. Ibrahim and Ismail, peace be upon him, were instructed to keep the house pure and dedicated to the worship of Allah. Prophet Ibrahim, peace be upon him, prayed to God to make the city of Mecca a center of peace and provide the dwellers with a variety of fruits. Prophet Ibrahim and Ismail, peace be upon them, supplicated to God to send one among their progeny, devoted to maintaining the sanctity of the house of Allah. The advent of the Holy Prophet was the fulfillment of this prayer. Allah commanded Prophet Ibrahim, peace be upon him, to proclaim that the house of Allah is a center of pilgrimage and that their animals are sacrificed to feed the poor. The pilgrims have to perform 7 circuits of the house of Allah, and thereby they may ask for the mercy and favor of Allah. Prophet Ibrahim, peace be upon him, prays to God to make Mecca a center of peace and invokes that his descendants should avoid idol worship. He prays to make the Kaaba popular in the eye of the people and provide the dwellers with a variety of fruit. The pilgrimage is really a vow to purify yourself from all sins and to live a life of righteousness. A pilgrim must abstain from all evils, obscenities, wickedness or wrangling. A pilgrim should have the necessary provisions for the journey. One should not kill an animal after wearing a pilgrim garb, ihram. To walk briskly between Mount Safa and Mount Marwa is one of the items of Hajj. It reminds us of the desperate measures of Hazrat Hajara in her search for water. An invisible voice beckoned her to the spring of Tsum that was close by the little infant Ismail. The site of Ibrahim's sacrifice of his son Ismail was the valley of Mount Mina. Adjoining Mount Mina there is the landscape of Arafat. On the 9th day of Zu al-Hijjah, pilgrims have to stay in Arafat from afternoon to dusk engaged in prayer and devotion. After sunset, the pilgrims have to leave Arafat for Muzdalifah where there is the sacred monument Mash'a-e-Haram. The pilgrims offer prayers there during the night. After morning prayer, pilgrims proceed to Mina, a few miles from Mecca. They stay at Mina for 2 or 3 days to celebrate the sacrifice of the animals and avail themselves of the festivities. On the 10th day of Zu al-Hijjah, pilgrims sacrifice an animal during their stay at Mina. If one is unable to offer the sacrifice, one has to keep fast. 3 days fast in Mecca and 7 days when he returns to his home, altogether 10 days fast. This is in lieu of sacrifice. These days there are no needy to avail of the flesh, therefore it is advisable for pilgrims to fast for 10 days. The option of fasting is not permitted for the residents of Mecca. In the landscape at Mina, there are 3 pitched stones. The last item of the ritual is to pelt the stones with pebbles. This event is to remind the pilgrims of the 3 treacherous persons who guided the route from Yemen to Mecca when Abrahah with an army led by elephants invaded Mecca to demolish the Kaaba. This took place just 50 days before the birth of the Holy Prophet. Abrahah's army was totally destroyed by the curse of God. Mysterious birds holding fiery stones smashed the whole force. The Quran refers to this event in Surah 105. The Muslims are warned to preserve the sanctity of the sacred mosque, and it is ordained that infidels should not be allowed to approach this sacred mosque. The moral of the life of Prophet Ibrahim, peace be upon him, is to inspire us to be dedicated to following the path of righteousness. Our sacrifices, our prayers, and our lives from birth to death must be dedicated to seeking the pleasure of Allah, and we must demonstrate that I am the first to seek His pleasure. The truths enunciated by the Quran have been universally accepted and proven historically and scientifically. The Quran is widely regarded as a book of signs, proving that it can only be a revelation from the divine. The conception of unity and uniqueness of God has so elaborately been presented by the Holy Quran, which has no parallel in the literature of religions. The conception has so deeply affected the minds of the human race, that polytheism is frankly discarded with disdain. The Holy Quran in chapter 17.70 proclaimed that mankind is worthy of respect. The Quran says, "Verily, we have made the children of Adam worthy of honor." This view is now universally accepted. A very remarkable idea concerning the criterion of respectability has been pronounced by the Quran: the man of highest character is the noblest among you. Thus all notions of racial or national superiority have been rejected outright. The man who leads a life in perfect conformity to the laws of Allah is a perfect gentleman. In the Quran named Muttaqi. Willful domination of one over the other has been declared detestable in the eyes of Allah. Thus monarchy and autocracy have been declared unjustifiable forms of government. It absolutely implies the abolition of slavery and equality in society.